story for another day. So I'm going to just introduce everybody super quick, just in name, and then I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about their path, and then we're going to dive right in. So we've got Bonneau Ansley with Ansley Atlanta Real Estate. We've got Amanda Fard with Keller Williams, what's the name of the office again? Cityside, thank you. We've got Anna Kilinski Brent with KW Intown, and Jerry Metcalf with Sotheby's Fine Homes in Buckhead. So Atlanta Fine Homes. I know my error. Hey, I'm trying to save the voice. So Jerry, we'll let you go first. If you guys will press the button too to make sure your mics are green, that'd be awesome. Jerry, I'll let you go first and just give a little kind of short version of your story, maybe how you started in real estate and your setup now.
So I push the button on top?
Yes.
Okay.
Or you just leave it green.
Oh, good. Okay. So Jerry Metcalf, Atlanta Fine Homes. I've been in the business for 14 years. I got into this business, I think it's kind of relevant. I came in with like nothing, not a car, not many clothes, and really built a business, and it ended up being a great opportunity from that. Now I've got some of the most talented people I could ever ask for, including Robert Barstow in the room today on our team, and we do, this year I think we're going to do about 45 transactions and about 35 million.
Anna Kilinski, been in the business, or licensed, shall I say, since 2006. Didn't start selling till the armpit of the market in 2008. Have really had a wonderful, exciting journey for the last 10 years. It's been a steady climb year after year. I swore I would never get into real estate because my whole family is, and I was like the weird in-town artsy kid that didn't understand like a commission-only job. Like, who would ever take that? And so I've been doing this year after year. I've been making a lot of mistakes, which I'm trying to learn from every year, but I think those mistakes have really propelled our success. I find that the foundation of our success is really through good people, which I see a couple of them hanging out in here. And we have been sort of steady at around 55 million for the last couple of years. We've got a big goal in 2018 to grow by a couple of people and shoot for 75 mil. But I kind of have a future baseline of what we'd like to do is at least 100 million without pumping the brakes every year. So we're working towards that.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Amanda.
Hi, I'm Amanda Fard, Keller Williams Cityside in the Smyrna Vinings area, and similar to Anna, I got into the business at the end of '06 when I graduated from college. So the first year was great, 2007 was fun, and then all of a sudden the bottom hit, and it was kind of a blessing. Actually, it was very much a blessing, because I always said I didn't know what I didn't know. So I just worked hard and, figured out how to navigate a down market when everybody else was kind of boo-hooing. Since then, it's been, 11 years now, and this is my first year that I will officially be a team. I've been an individual agent for the last 11 years, and I'm slowly growing my little empire that I foresee, which is not going to be as big as some other people that I know. However, it's kind of my path, so that's where we are.
That's awesome. Thank you. Bonneau?
Hey guys, Bonneau Ansley. I got in the business about 8 years ago, and was just an individual agent, and just every year continued to grow, and the last 3 years I've done about 175 million in production each year with 3 assistants, and ended up starting a company just because I needed something else to do. So 2 years ago we started Ansley Atlanta Real Estate. We've got over 100 agents now, and really enjoying this kind of phase and chapter of my life. So it's been fun, and I'm continuing to sell as well.
I know that you all are here to hear us, but we're here to hear Bonneau.
That's great. Well, and whenever we have these panels, we all get together beforehand and talk a little bit, and it's always super exciting, and it always still kind of blows my mind how much with each of these guys all doing cool stuff that we just all get into like talking about what each other does. So it's a ton of fun. And as Amanda alluded to, one of the things that I think was really ultra clear is the fact that we all do kind of have this path and this vision of where we're headed. And I think if nothing else, leaving today with some, hearing some ideas from people but taking away things that you can take back and execute that really make sense for you, not because you saw them on Facebook or not because you heard that somebody else does this or they do it that way or they use this CRM, but for people that are actually, maybe this is a nice way to say this, but maybe people who are maybe a little ahead of where you are in your journey, just taking away from them or just doing different things, taking away from them something that they've done to get there and that work for them. So I'd love to go a little deeper on history, and I think we're just going to go back down the road. We'll throw it back to Bonneau for this, but I'd love for you to talk maybe even pre-real estate a little bit, and then kind of getting into real estate and your current empire.
I wasn't much of a student growing up. Always selling myself out of trouble and selling myself, into good opportunities. Started selling T-shirts in high school. That led into college, where I started a T-shirt company from scratch. Ended up selling to all the fraternities and sororities every time they'd have a party, and ended up really just enjoying the process of dealing with people. At the end of the day, people are everything. That's what we've got to work with throughout the day. And so having that great relationship and connection with people, I think, is a very important thing. Started when I finished University of Georgia. I moved down to the coast of Georgia and started building houses, selling property, selling commercial property, just doing a whole bunch of stuff, and kind of got every facet of real estate under my belt. Moved back to Atlanta in 2005, and wanted to, beat Donald Trump and build a big, development, and ended up building a $70 million deal on Peachtree Road, and it was phenomenal. Still is a great place. Problem is I delivered in 2008, so I didn't make any money. But the good thing is when life has its challenges and curves, it's how you adapt. And I talk a lot about mindset, and I think mindset's a great thing. And my mindset was not to get frustrated and say, man, the timing stunk, and man, this is my fault, and I should have done this. I just kind of pivoted, and I ended up putting a deal together and selling the project. Yes, I lost some money, but ended up putting my sales hat on and said, look, I'm going to sell this to you, but I'm going to stick with you, and I'm going to sell these townhomes. And that was in 2009. That was the start of me kind of getting into residential real estate in Atlanta, and started selling the 23 townhomes. And I'd meet somebody and show them a house, and they'd say, well, look, I got a house, on West Paces Ferry Road or North Side or wherever, and I need somebody to sell that. So I'm your huckleberry on that too. So that's kind of started. That's how it progressed. And in my first year in 2009, I was the #1 individual agent for the board in Atlanta. And my motto is get uncomfortable. So every year I get uncomfortable and do something different. So if you're consistently doing $10 million of production a year, and that's what you want to do, that's fine. But the only way you're going to change and increase your production, which I've been able to double every year until I kind of hit that plateau of 175 a few years ago and kind of stayed there, is because you've got to get uncomfortable and change things. You got to change the way you're doing stuff. You got to change your business model. You got to change the way that you're marketing, the way that you're selling, the way that your team operates, the way that your systems work. And every year I do that. I take a major overhaul, and was able to go from 16 to 34 to 74 and just to 144, and then 175, 175, 170. But you're not able to do that unless you get uncomfortable. And once I started hitting my plateau of 175, I said, I got to do something different. How can I get uncomfortable? So at that point, I went and I bought a building, and I moved my team. And my team at that time was probably 7 or 8 folks. Bought a building on the Beltline, and I moved them in. I said, all right, this is kind of uncomfortable. I got this big, building, and I only got 7 people in it, so I think I need to start a company to fill the building. So it puts you in a position to do stuff that you wouldn't automatically do. So I did that. That was 2 years ago. That was January 1st of, 16. Yeah, so 16. So then, we started growing. We filled up that building. I sold the building this year. Made a bunch of money on the building, which I wouldn't have had done unless I bought it. And signed a lease for over 10,000 square feet of Shops at Buckhead. And now we've got over 100 agents in 2 years. The company will do $500+ million and we are on a growth path. It's really, really exciting. Our average agent does about 5.5 million in volume. So we've got just a really high level of folks. I think we've got one of the most agents that do over 10 million in volume, which is a real good kind of platform for other people to succeed. And the folks that we've hired to kind of run the business are exceptional, which lets me just be an agent and be a mentor. So it's been a good run so far.
I love that. And something when you talk about the building, a concept maybe we can take away from that. I always have loved the concept of air, that air fills the space that it's given. And I think that's such a super cool thing to do, to say, hey, I have this building, now what are we going to do with it? I think too many people, myself included, try to overplan that and say, oh, we're not going to do that, how are we going to do this? And you just bought a building.
Well,
Put some good people in it.
One thing is, it's not always going to pencil out in life, when you're deciding to hire that assistant, and you look at the math and say, oh, that's going to cost X amount of money. Well, it doesn't really work right now. We'll make it work, and when I bought that building, it didn't pencil out. I mean, it didn't work. I sold it. I made, $1,300,000 on it, and I shouldn't have even bought it in the first place. And it pencils out now. So that's
When
one
did
way
you
to
buy it
do
again, relative to the belt line being the belt line?
No, I bought it 2 years ago, and I sold it right on the 2-year kind of anniversary.
That's wild. That's
Crazy.
awesome. That is crazy, but good crazy.
So should we buy that one?
Not now.
Was it something you buy that one?
Oh, he did.
You did?
Yeah.
Amanda, you want to talk a little bit about kind of your path to real estate, which, by the way, this is super interesting to me too, because part of the reason I love the YPN group is the idea of people getting into this business as a career earlier on in their life. Not coming into it. So many of us have had, it's a second, third, fourth career for a lot of us. And I love seeing younger people get in the business and have a plan and grow through it. And it's like such a big passion of mine. So I'd love for you to kind of tell your path here.
Yes, so my plan growing up was to be a news anchor. And in high school, I worked for a real estate school and thought, oh, that's a great job, whatever. That led to me working for a custom home builder in college, which was great. I was in charge of their warranty department. It was fun. I was still in communications at Kennesaw State and in marketing, and I was still going to be a news anchor and do all these things. And by the time I was done with college, I was looking at these on-site agents for the builder that I worked for, and I was thinking, these people are not so smart. Honestly, that's what I thought. I was like, and they're not very nice, and they're making tons of money, and I'm helping them do these open houses, and I'm able to talk to people, and I'm excited about homes, and I'm basically like kind of selling these houses for them, and then they're making the checks, and again, they're just not so smart. So when I went to go graduate for college, I was like, well, heck, why not? Like, let's get my real estate license and try it and jump in. At the time, my boyfriend, now husband, was a loan officer and owned a mortgage company that was affiliated with our builder. So I did have a little bit of push from him to say, okay, you can totally do this. But at the end of the day, I was 22, getting into this full commission world that I had never imagined that I would ever be in. From there, like I mentioned earlier, 2007 came. I was in a very small brokerage, and I was the #1 residential agent that year. Which was good on one hand because I was like, oh, this is awesome, I'm #1. And then on the other hand, I was like, but I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And if I'm #1, then I need to be around people to better me up instead of me being, on the top with not knowing what I was doing. So I switched companies to Keller Williams in my second year, and then that's when 2008 hit. And again, I didn't know any better. So it was just all about hard work. It was about networking. It was about getting over limiting beliefs of my age and, oh, I can't sell $1 million homes because nobody's going to want to talk to a 22, 23-year-old. So I worked through that a lot in my first years of real estate. And with the persistence and just going to work every day, I was able to double my business year after year for a while until you hit those plateaus, and then you up it and hit the plateaus. But I will say, over the last 11 years, looking back, it hasn't been completely easy. I mean, there's been times when I told my husband, I'm like, let me just go get a regular job, and throw this away. And he, thankfully, is one of my biggest cheerleaders and said, no, you can do this. Let's hang in. We also have a few other companies. One that buys and renovates homes and builds homes. So we did a lot of flipping in the down market and found opportunity there. And then a year and a half ago, we started a retail renovation business because he had such a following for his flips that he now goes in and people can hire him to renovate their homes. So that's been a fun thing to kind of add to what we do or what I do on this side. My focus for the last, I would say, 3 years has been work-life balance. As I said when I got into it, it's just the grind and the down market and all that kind of stuff. And I found myself just like running myself into the ground, and I realized that that's not how it had to be. And I saw these agents with teams or agents that have been in it for a long time that were able to turn it off. And I was like, how do you turn it off? It's like I feel like I always have to be on call. And so I made a commitment to myself a few years ago that I was going to start taking control over my calendar. One of the ways that we did that is my husband and I purchased a property up in North Georgia, which was our getaway of the world, but still close enough if, God forbid, a house caught on fire, I could get back into the city within an hour and a half. And I told myself when we got it, I said, this is going to be a motivator, for my business as opposed to a distraction. And what it motivated me to do is to create such a tight schedule for myself and my clients that they were working within what I wanted them to, as opposed to me running around and trying to be pulled in 20 different directions. I'm still trying to perfect it. However, because of that, I have been able to create a schedule where I have appointments Monday through Thursdays. We typically go up on Thursday afternoon and come home Sunday. Now, showing buyers, I still do that because, again, single agent until this year. So I would commute down from the mountain to show buyers. But what I found was that, I would talk to my clients and be like, okay, well, I can meet you guys on Wednesday, at 2. And, before I'd be like, oh, well, they can't meet at 2 because they don't get off till 5 and blah, blah, blah. And I was making all these assumptions. And it's amazing when you give people an opportunity to fit within your schedule and you give them, 1 or 2 options, they make it work. And so I found that with giving and being protective of my time, other people were fitting into that, which allowed me to have a better work-life balance, enjoy my life more, travel, and things like that. So that's been my focus for the last few years. Going into the next few years, I am looking to grow my team a little bit. I'm looking for another buyer's agent, and then possibly down the road maybe a listing specialist. But we really work kind of lean and mean, and it's worked for me, and I love my life. So.
That's great. Very good.
You
Anna.
won't get off the mountain for less than
$10,000. So I'm looking at a commission. I said it to you.
we're like open a lipstick. She goes, and I don't get off the mountain for less than $10,000. I was like, and that should be on your business card.
Well, and honestly, and of course I don't tell my clients that. I think you should. But really, when I'm looking at it,
Sign your video release, by the way.
Not yet, actually. So when I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, well, looking at my perfect client and where they're looking, how motivated they are. And that's part of it. It's like I put the money to attach to it because it's kind of a fun and motivating thing. But at the same time, it's like, why would I go out on a Saturday and spend 4 hours and be away from my husband and be driving around in the car with people that are not motivated or that are not pre-qualified, which I don't know why anybody would do that. But so yeah, I mean, my husband and I set a benchmark that it's like, okay, well, if I'm going to come down the mountain and show buyers, that I'm either going to have one buyer that's $300,000 or above, or I'll have 2 buyers that would equate to $10,000.
Because otherwise, back to your time management stuff, it's just a race to the bottom, right? Because then you're like, well, this one's $8,000. Well, this one's $7,000.
Pop in that day,
$6,500
to Monday, kind of thing.
Because I think that's what a lot of us do is we make that exception and then it becomes the rule and it's not
and
a good
again,
way.
a lot of it is the motivation of the clients, which because of that, I've gotten much better at my pre-qualification with my listing appointments and my buyer appointments. Drastically in my listing appointments, because it's, if I'm going to go and meet somebody, whether it's, Monday through Thursday or even coming down on the weekends, I want to know that, my time is well spent and, that I'm prepared for them. And motivation, goes both ways. One is to make sure I'm not wasting my time, and the other is to make sure that they're clear on what they want, so that I can come in and help them most effectively.
Right. That's great. Good. Anna?
So she thinks I'm calling her out, but I'm pointing out the fact
I
that
have
she has standards for her time. And I think that's a really big thing to point out, that a lot of realtors don't have standards for their own time. So I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that today. Can you repeat the question? Because I
Yeah.
just feel like I'm supposed to talk about myself.
You are a little bit. So it's just kind of path maybe to where you are now, just an overview.
Okay, perfect. So growing up, I thought that I wanted to be a psychiatrist, and it turns out I have fulfilled my dream. So I did. Real estate was something that I really kind of shied away from. I have, my entire family is in real estate. I have a brother who's a mortgage originator, owns his own company. Father's very heavily involved with Keller Williams. I grew up in New Orleans. I used to see like all these real estate agents with like a lot of bangles and like big hair and billboards and bright lipstick, and turns out, you know, I fell into that shoe as well. But I didn't really get real estate. I just thought it was like for stay-at-home moms and wives and stuff. Maybe that was the New Orleans market. So when I came to Atlanta, I went to Alabama, graduated with the information management degree, so definitely like got the little techno nerd thing going on inside, but really prefer more the management piece of that. I started working as a consultant for hospitals and doing some like revenue cycle engineering, some really awesome, exciting stuff, and decided that this was not for me, being on the road every day, and just kind of floundered around in different careers. Ended up buying my first house before I was even in real estate when I was 25. And that was kind of going back to like getting uncomfortable. Like I didn't know that I didn't know that was a thing, but that was really uncomfortable for me. Kind of going through that process, kind of as a young adult, scrounging up some money for a down payment. But what I found is that the man who renovated my house, he did a phenomenal job with construction, but he was like a horrible business manager. And for some reason, I was like a moth to the flame. Like I wanted to know everything about what he did, and I didn't know that he was really horrible at business. So I ended up quitting my corporate job, going to work for him for $500 a week, just to have him teach me everything that he knew. And he had me running around like paying his, you know, workers on Friday in cash and like some sketchy warehouse on Edgewood. And here I was like this cute little Intown girl, like, you know, spray painted walls everywhere. If my dad saw what I did on Fridays, he would have yanked me out of that role. But I was just like getting all this creative energy around like learning how to renovate houses and watching somebody be like a really poor business manager. And I saw that the opportunity for me to take the skill that I had learning how to renovate houses, which had become my passion, and also find areas for improvement on how he could run his business better. So I started helping consult him to grow his business to a higher level. But at the same time, 28 years old at the time, 2007 or 8, I didn't know any different about the market, and I was like, all right, well, we're building houses. Let me go ahead and sell those for him. Got my real estate license, and then started working with all of my friends who in their late 20s went to be first-time home buyers, and really just decided that I was better running around the city, kind of getting excited about what was happening in the city and educating these first-time home buyers about the market and like the new developments that were happening around town. And eventually just phased out working with this unsavvy business builder, but having that background for understanding how a quality house was built helped me sort of kind of put my stake in the ground for people to say, okay, she knows what she's talking about. So kind of going along the lines of just being like a true single realtor for a number of years, decided that I needed some massive help when I was around the $10 million mark. I was trying to do everything myself. I was feeling very burnt out. I was definitely a hard worker, very motivated, very driven, you know, came in early, left late, but I realized that my time was not spent equally, like I wasn't worth the same on every activity that I did. So it became apparent to me after hiring a coach that I needed to get all like the fluff off my plate, like what's not a dollar productive activity. And that was a big risk for me because I'm a slow and steady. Like Bonneau likes to buy $7 million projects overnight, and that's no skin off his back. For me, hiring my first assistant was like a massive, oh my God, like how am I going to afford this? Like he was mentioning. But I took a risk and quickly found out that through leverage, it was a lot easier for me to focus on what my strengths were, which was working with people, connecting with people, negotiating deals, and then slowly just sort of added a piece to the pie. Going back to what I said earlier, like I would say that my career is probably tattered with more mistakes than it is successes. But over time, you just kind of learn to see what works and what doesn't. So we've been building a small team. I've got, I think, 6 people total, 2 buyer specialists, highly leveraged buyer specialists who's sitting in the front here, and a listing manager who's sitting in the front here. and a contracted close coordinator and a director of operations. And so that's kind of our small little unit. And we are definitely at the plateau part of our business right now where I can honestly say that there won't be one person except for Sarah who started with our team in the beginning of the year who will finish the team with me in 2017. And I'm happy to be an open book about my failures with people and where I've lacked as a leader and what I need to do to focus on to make sure we're rebuilding with the right people in the bus to move it forward, because we're succeeding as a house of cards, and that's not sustainable if you want to grow and be more scalable. So I'm excited about what's next because I feel like I have a super clear vision of what that needs to look like now.
Yeah, I love that, and I love that you're that transparent about that, and also by the same token, the fact that if those things hadn't happened, then you wouldn't know what the next step was. So I think that's really important. I think a lot of people are super scared, kind of what we talked about, like Bonneau said, it doesn't theoretically work on paper, right?
Yeah.
The fact that you've moved there, I've said this before, and some people have heard it, I apologize, but the idea that those things are stepping stones, and as long as it's good for everybody involved, if it's just a step forward for everybody, then that's fine. It's not always about if we could all only just make the perfect decision the first time around.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me know when that's happened, because
exactly.
it doesn't work that way.
Kind of, Amanda's thing was, all right, let me create a space for myself to operate in my world. I need my clients to operate in my world, otherwise I don't have that work-life balance. And the big thing that has changed for our business probably in the last 2 to 3 years is just making the choice to specialize. So a lot of you all might, and can I ask who's in our audience?
Sure.
I want to know
Absolutely.
who's under 2 years in the business, you say? All right, 5 years? Okay, who's been here 10 years? Okay, so we've got a nice little mix of people, and who's individual agent? And who might be on a team? Okay, so a good mix of people. That's awesome. So there's a lot of big numbers up here, and I guess what I want to say about that is the number is not what makes us successful. You got to decide what is that for you? For me, after having a baby, it's going to be my quality of life and how I can be a mother and a business owner at the same time. And for somebody else who's a solo agent, that might be hitting the $20 million mark or $10 million mark, whatever that is for you in your business. But I will tell you that the way that we were able to sort of break through the $25 to $30 million mark was literally by hiring a specialist to do something at a very high level, but also incredibly detailed. So when our clients interface with us, they're like, all right, Anna's not running around wearing the buyer's agent's hat and then having to go to a listing appointment. Because those two things don't necessarily, while you need to have both skills to understand how to negotiate for your client, it's really kind of hard to switch back and forth and also be highly effective. So,
and I would add to that too. It's not even a function of if you are able to do those things. It's not a skill set. It's just that there's only enough hours in the day and enough bandwidth in your brain to do one of those things. So finding the one that you're best at and doing that is probably where the magic lies. It's not that you can't do those things. Maybe the question you should ask yourself is maybe if you shouldn't be doing those things.
Yeah, and I should not be driving buyers around for 2 or 3 hours because I would have nothing to say.
It's great.
I just turn on. Do you like the song?
Do you like the song? This is great.
Yeah.
Do you have Spotify on your phone? That's awesome. All right, Jerry, you want to give us kind of your path to real estate and where you are now?
I love what you said, Anna, about I was always told I should be a therapist, and I am. It's exactly what you said. So I grew up in exactly, Dr. Anna, here we are, Dr. All of us. So I started in this business 14 years ago, but I was 26. I just gave away my age. But anyway, but before that, I grew up in a family of professionals. Everybody has a job. Everybody gets benefits, and that's your life dream is to grow up, get a job, get paid, and have certainty in life. And that's what I was told all my life. And I was also on the side told you can do whatever you do. Well, but none of that really made sense. So grew up, went to college, got a job. I, believe it or not, got fat and sad and miserable. And then before I became an agent, I quit that job and kind of went crazy, went out west, rode horses, learned a lot, but made a lot of bad decisions. And in the long run, the short end of that is I made my way back to Atlanta with literally, I didn't have a car. long story, but I had like a pair of flip-flops. I had 40 pounds, had made my way to another country. This is all for a book I might write one day. But the point is, I land in Atlanta, and I'm like, okay, this certainty thing and this corporate job stuff, they're not for me. Horses are great, and I can make a buck, but it's not the lifestyle I want. There's something better out there. Whatever mom and dad say, there's something better out there. Life is short. I'm only going to be here so long, and I'm at heart an entrepreneur. Even when I rode horses, I was always told, well, that's too expensive, and I'd always find a way to make money and do it anyway. I just would, because I was competitive and I loved it, and that's what I wanted to do, and that was just my wiring. So I figured that out again the hard way in the real world of having to make a living. So I get to Atlanta, and I don't have much, and I know I'm not going to be poor. That's not an option. I've got to make a lot of money. So what is obvious but real estate? This is the easiest entry. You've got a business set up for you. You've got an office set up for you. Everything's in place. So here we go. Get into the business. The coolest thing about starting that way was, yes, I grew up. Yes, I had a nice family. But any connections I had, I basically burnt. So I was in a position where even my best friend who sold her $100,000 condo would not list it with me. So I had to figure out, how am I going to make a living at this, and or make a living in general, and what am I going to do to offer value? So the short story of that is, in the beginning of my career, I literally was doing land deals before I was selling houses, because builders would talk to me because I was 26 and I was probably cute, but I also happened to be smart. I knew land because I knew horses, I understood zoning, so I did land deals, sold land. And in selling land, I was in Anna's office at Keller before she was there. But I was there doing land deals, and then the recession hit, so I had to learn how to sell houses and do short sales. Went through that, had babies, figured out, running around selling land everywhere is fun. That was great, but the recession kind of took that away. Learned how to do short sales, and then I figured out, okay, I live in a certain part of town. I have a family. I've got to really, really figure out how to make a lot of money, because I've got to still make a lot of money to support my family, and I want to, I like to, it's fun, and I've got to do it in a way that is efficient. I'm not working 24/7, and I'm in a higher price point. So that's when I narrowed down, I specialized in Brookhaven, started doing a lot of sales in a store at Brookhaven, and that really took me to the next level. Well, during that process, I had transitioned into Atlanta Fine Homes. A few years in, I'm like, I had tried that team thing, not doing that again. I don't manage well, don't work well with others, not for me. Well, this guy named Robert Barstow, who's incredibly talented, is in my office. And I would always, if I had a deal I didn't have time for, I'd just pick a junior agent and kind of let them take over it. And Robert just kept showing up, and he kept doing a really good job. So that was like, what was that, a year ago? It's been a year. So that was 2 years ago. We, since then, have started working together. And this year, I'm so blessed to have him on my team. It's been me and him working together. And in that process, we've gone from, this year we'll be transitioning into, real live assistants that work just for us, and a couple more team members. But that's the gist of kind of where I was and where I've gotten now.
That's perfect, and that was a perfect segue into what was your first hire. And it doesn't have to be a hire. It doesn't have to be like a W-2 person. But let's go to you, Bonneau. I'd love to hear kind of what was your first initial growth strategy, I guess.
Yeah, so 09 started as an individual agent, and I think when you reach your capacity, that's the time to hire somebody else. So, I got to become very busy and had more listings that I could handle, and so I hired my first person, and I was able to take on so much more. And then when he got to his capacity, we hired somebody else, and when she got to her capacity, we hired somebody else. So I think that's a really good benchmark on when to know when to hire, and it's when you can't handle anymore, and it's stopping growth.
No, it's super scary, but I think sometimes you just have to make that leap, and there's a lot of different ways to structure it, which we may or may not go into. But Amanda, what was your first hire?
I had to think about this actually when I read your questions when you emailed them. I was like, who was it? I've been through quite a few of assistants. You fail forward, right? And some of them you just want to forget about, but you get better every time, and that's the exciting part. And that's what I've told myself, and I've got a great assistant now. But my first hire, if I really had to think about it, I wouldn't have considered it a hire at first, but looking back, it was the smartest hire that I ever did, is that I got a closing coordinator, which was not a full-time person that I brought on as a salary or anything like that, hourly. Kim Smith with the closing company was out of my office, and she was actually just starting her business as well, and this had to have been back in 09, 10, something like that. But anyway, she was going to Spain for 2 weeks, and I had never used her as a closing coordinator before, but she knew that I was, really involved, and I was, killing it, doubling and just a workaholic at that point. And she said, "Would you mind watching over my business when I go to Spain?" And I thought, well, yeah, sure, I can help, no problem. I really liked her, so I was like, okay. So she went to Spain for 2 weeks, and I basically was a closing coordinator for 2 weeks. And it took so much time. It was mind-blowing how, and of course, she had multiple clients. I was working, multiple deals, but at the end of it, it was such a good learning experience for me because I realized all of the crud that I was, that we do as agents that you don't have to do, nor should you do if you're really selling real estate. And she came back, and I looked at her and I said, "You've got all my files from now on." And I paid the $350 that it was, and honestly, I've used them all except for one assistant where I brought it in-house and then realized why not? They're the best at what they do. I still use them today. For all my closing coordinators.
That's awesome. That's a pretty smart tactic. It's a good marketing tactic.
Yeah.
Go to Spain and let you take over my business.
I know. It was like, I thought, okay, I'll just do that for like 2 hours a day, and then I'll still be able to lead generate and go to my appointments. I was in her office, all day long, and it was just the phone calls and the letters, and it's like, I think it took that little bit of higher volume that maybe I didn't have at that point to make me realize all of the time suck that all that stuff is, and that, I really needed to be out selling real estate and let a professional do what, she does. So.
Absolutely. Anna, for you, your first hire?
Well, Amanda was obviously reading my notes and stole my answer, but so I had to get very clear, like when I was looking at all the tasks that I did every day, I had to ask myself, is chasing down a lead-based paint signature on the LVP exhibit worth the same amount of money to me as going on a listing appointment? And it was obvious the answer was no. And so I needed to get that off my plate immediately. That I remember having a coaching call. I think I might have been like at 8 million in my production, and I was like in tears because I didn't have a freaking another second in my day to do anything else, like barely feed myself. And I went through this list of tasks, like everything that I did in my day-to-day life, and said, okay, what is it that is weighing me down? And I go to hiring, we're talking about hiring against, what are your strengths and what are you really not good at? I am not good at minutia. I'm horrible at minutia. So our first employee, if you will, was our contract to close coordinator, and we did it very similarly to what Amanda did with this awesome lady named Ruth Thomas. She has been our contract to close coordinator for 10 years, and I have officially replaced her, not because she was amazing at what she did, but with somebody who now does that full time for us on our team. So she was outsourced, paid by transaction, so there's really no risk on your end to get this stuff off your plate as long as you got somebody who's covering those details at a very high customer service level. You're paying them at closing, and if, God forbid, the deal falls apart, you're paying them like $50 or $100. So to me, that $350 is probably the best ROI on any type of hiring leverage type of activity that I could ever point out. Yeah. But my first person on my team that I actually scrounged up some money for, payroll, taxes, all that stuff, was going to be my executive assistant, which was somebody just to sort of help me get organized, do database management, help with all the touches to my clients, put together flyers, send out lockboxes, riders, like all that stuff. And that didn't happen until I was probably like at a $12 million mark.
Yeah, cool. That's great. So yeah, and those are obviously different things. I think Jerry, did you want to add to that? I know you mentioned Robert was your first, so.
Well, Ruth Thomas actually was my first. She's amazing. Cool. But we have somebody who's exclusively for our team too. But my answer is the same as everybody else's.
Yeah, that's great. And I think the overrunning thing that runs through all of that too is the idea that is a mindset shift. It's not always so much that finding the person or figuring out all those things. It's just the idea that now there's somebody else, whatever that looks like, whether it's per transaction or whether that's like, oh, now we have to have meetings or have a strategy, a policy on how to do this, or a plan for executing that. But I think it's just
expand on that real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, one thing that's interesting is I hadn't written a contract in at least 5 years. I don't know how to log into FMLS. I really don't. I don't know how to do a listing agreement, any of that stuff. And where my strengths are is kind of being out, meeting with my clients, and everything else I've set up because, again, I know my weaknesses, and I've got a bunch of them, and they're all related to spelling and you know, computers, all that sort of stuff. You know, I do email pretty good, but I talk on the phone very well, and I meet in person very well. So I think that's an interesting side.
That's great, and you can't outsource that.
No.
You can't outsource the face-to-face. That's if you want to automate a bunch of stuff, that's great, but not that.
I would add to what Bonneau said
Sure.
and just say I find that when my production's down, it's because I've been on the phone and with people less, especially on the phone, because you can get in touch with somebody so quickly with a phone call more than anything else. I mean, that is my productivity can double with just being on the phone more every day.
Well, and let's be real, in the current world, being on the phone is pretty soon going to be your unique differentiator, possibly. The fact that you actually have a conversation with somebody.
And don't rush into hiring somebody. Make sure it's the right person, because hiring a cancer cell in your office is absolutely awful. I've been very fortunate. The person that I hired 7 years ago is still with me today. My closing coordinator has been with me for 6 years. My listing coordinator has been with me for 5 years, and I kind of if I have anybody else, they're an intern for a couple months and that kind of thing. So
That's great. Well, and we won't go too deep down the path, but just bear in mind, there's a lot of unique ways to structure that. People can get paid per closings, people can get paid, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it. Everybody thinks, oh my goodness, I'm gonna pay somebody $40,000 a year, I have to have $40,000 in the bank, and that's just not the case. I don't know if we wanna go that deep on that right now, but that's something that
one thing to point out, though, whatever you're paying your assistants, it's a write-off. It's part of your business. So that $40,000, don't think that that's $40,000 coming off your bottom line. It's a write-off. It's a business expense.
And what's the ROI on that? If spending 40 makes you 80, then
It's absolutely huge. What it is.
that's great.
I agree on the P&L, it's an expense, but I look at it as an investment, right? Like, it's like that person, there's two things that prevent people from hiring, and it's loss of control, right? Like not having to give something up, because like I do it best, right? We all probably think that. And also the funds, right? Feeling like you're just cutting this check and you're burning the money. Well, if you're hiring a talented person, they should triple that for you. I mean, at least, right, to your bottom line. And you give them a 3-month runway. I mean, RJ knows.
We'll get you a mic.
Are we past 2 months? You're hired.
That's how you do it, people.
Yeah.
Just go for it. That's
I'm just
awesome.
saying, if you invest in your people,
Yeah.
and look, you're gonna know quickly if they're not performing. You're not out 40 grand. You're out
Right.
the time.
Are you really going to go a year and not notice they're not
No.
doing a good job for you?
Well, I have, but I won't do it again. Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. All right, cool. So we'll pivot a little bit now and maybe go to, actually, we'll segue that, but pivot into what was your biggest mistake? We'll start with you, Jerry, and come this way.
Oh my God, there's so many.
Well, the biggest one, or the biggest one you can say here.
I could just narrow it down into one sentence, it would be, didn't follow your gut. That's it.
That's good.
I mean, there's so many. One of the biggest ones I made was hiring the wrong assistant a long time ago. I hired the wrong person, and I didn't fire them soon enough. I mean, he was clearly not for the job, and I always felt committed and obligated, and I loved him, and I could go on, and I couldn't fire him because I needed him, because he was doing all this stuff for me, and when I finally let him go, it was I couldn't believe, at the time, I think I was doing like 12 million, and I couldn't believe that, and even now I can't believe that, I mean, I love the guy to this day, but it just wasn't the right job for him. And when I let him go, how did it get easier to do 12 million without an assistant? It's beyond me, but that's how important it is to not to hire. And follow your gut. When something doesn't feel right, like address it, talk about it, confront it, and figure out the solution and get to it sooner than later.
Yeah, that's great. Anna, for you?
Mine is definitely also around people. I would say it would be not leveraging my business sooner. So like not firing myself sooner from something. Like for example, I would give Sarah a lot of credit, who is our lead buyer specialist, for allowing the team to grow, because I'm not the best buyer specialist. She does it better than I could ever do it. So not leveraging sooner, that would be through an assistant, contract to close person, or for those people that have an amazing business but still insist on working with buyers.
I'm working on it.
And then also not creating standards for myself around the business, and not creating and instilling standards for how other people should operate in my business. So like kind of bringing somebody on and being like, oh, we're just going to wing it together, and having clear role expectations of like what performance looks like. And it's not necessarily like selling performance. It's like, what does it look like if you're going to bring somebody in your organization? What are your standards for customer service? What are your standards for like how you guys answer the phone? What are your standards for, every time you meet or greet a client, like what does that interaction start and end with? Is everybody required to come to the office? How many phone calls should they be making? What does that sound like? So I don't think I had any standards for my business in terms of like what was considered my brand. And I feel like now that we have that, it's like people feel more comfortable. It's like raising a toddler on a schedule. They know what to look forward to. They know when they're out of line. They kind of understand their boundaries. With my people now, I'm trying to give long leash, high walls, but people know where the walls are, right? So you go do what you do, but here's where we know we need to operate within. And I don't think I ever created that for my business until like a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and I think in that you grow as you do it, right? You couldn't have just figured that out the first time you hired somebody. So, Amanda, biggest mistake.
Quick piggyback, gut for sure. The hiring thing, again, you feel forward and you get better. Sean Rolls told me years ago in the class that I was in, and this I think was right when I was maybe on my second assistant. And he said, hire slow, fire fast. And he just left it at that. Somebody had asked a question, and they were like, well, can you elaborate? And he's like, hire slow, fire fast. And that always resonated with me. So it's like, when you get that gut and you hire somebody and you're like, oh, this isn't, what I thought it was going to be or whatever, I go with that. But I would say my biggest mistakes, flipping to kind of toward clients, is to take on those clients that I shouldn't have taken on, that I had that gut feeling about, that were just nasty, horrible people that I would have never made happy no matter what I do. And I am a people pleaser. I love being around people. I actually don't mind taking buyers out, which is probably why I'm kind of having a hard time giving that leash off. But, and I know I need to. But I, in the years past, there's clients that I look back at and I still, like my gut and I just feel sick to my stomach. I've had transactions that I've gotten my check and I've donated the entire check because I didn't even want the dirty money, because it just didn't feel right and they were just not good. So years ago, my husband and I decided that no one transaction is worth your mental health and your physical being, and two, we work with great people. And that is a thing that we say throughout all of our companies and within our office, is we work with great people, whether it's vendors, clients, all that kind of stuff. So when I leave a listing appointment, or when I leave a buyer, I ask myself, I'm like, okay, does this seem like a great person? And it's, is their energy right? Is their motivation right? Is it somebody that I want to spend the next, 30 to 60 days with? Are they just good people? And that's really helped me to, work with people that I want to work with, and then leave the mean people to go find somebody else, I guess.
Well, it's like we talked about before, just having that path or having a plan. It's not that it's a perfect plan, it's you just have a plan. If that's your plan,
I just don't want
stick
to
with it,
people,
and,
at
and then
all.
you can measure it and adapt.
Yeah,
So.
exactly.
But no, your biggest mistake?
I've got thousands of mistakes, but again, I try not to let them weigh me down. Was developing a big project a mistake? Yeah, it was a huge mistake, but it also granted an opportunity to do a thousand different things, right? So, I always try to live my life not in blinders, and I see a really big picture, and I try a lot of different things. We've got a home building company, right? And we'll do probably $15 million worth of construction this year. That's a lot, Is that taking too much time away from my core business? I don't know. Maybe, I'm looking into that, just for the return of how much money you make on the construction side relative to the time, relative to business is really hard. We've got a developer services group. That's definitely not a mistake. It's one that we bought. I bought the marketing directors with David Tufts, who started the condo store in the 90s. So we've now got a huge new business segment that's going really, really well. But it took a while to kind of get the properties and get all that going, and now we've got $1.5 billion under marketing right now across the Southeast. And so I think that all mistakes are excellent. It's just the way that your mind takes you to a place with them.
Right. When you do stuff, you make mistakes.
You have to. You're not doing enough.
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely. No, that's great. So we'll really pivot into, and this can be personal or business, and I didn't prep you guys for this at all, so we kind of got into it. Would love to just hear something interesting about how you learn, like a good book, or I watch this, or I listen to this, or I follow this person, or maybe somebody who's inspirational. And Bonneau, we'll start with you and go back the other way. So either a book or somebody you follow online, or just somebody, what motivates you or inspires you?
I think what motivates me is the people that have chosen of Ansley Atlanta to be their company, where they work, where they do their life during the day. And that's a big deal for me. So what motivates me is helping those agents achieve a better success. And everybody's success is rated differently, right? Is it the money in your account? Is it having a busy day, right? Some people just need to have a busy day and be able to do things that they want to do. But what motivates me is being able to take somebody, I've got several agents that did $4 million of volume last year. This year they're doing 15 and 18 million, and they're doing the things that I sit down with them every 2 weeks and say this, and this. They go and do it. They get uncomfortable, and it's really changing their lives around there. They seem very happy. They're motivating other people, and it's just a contagious thing in our office, and the culture really fits us well with that super success story of other people.
Yeah, once we go down the line, I want to turn that back to a little more of the management leadership dialogue too. And just while you said that, I'd love to just follow that with the fact that you've done that. And so it puts you in a position to mentor other people to do that. It's great to say, hey, I read this book, or I heard you could do this.
Yeah,
but you've done that, and you can pass it along.
A lot of other companies are run with folks that weren't real estate agents. And I make it very clear that our office, our agents are our clients, right? So we give them the tools that they need to be wildly successful, from a marketing standpoint, from a mentor standpoint, and everything in between. And I take a personal approach with every single one of them to help them, get where they want to get. Goal setting's very huge with us, and it seems to be working well.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Amanda, any sort of a book or something you listen to or somebody you follow just for motivation and inspiration?
So I have a business coach. I have for years and years. And when I turned 30, I decided, okay, I don't need just business coaching, I need life coaching too. So I switched coaches. And one of the things that she had me do early on, and we've done over the years, probably every quarter, let's say, is to figure out, where I am with spirituality, wealth, business, all that kind of stuff, and figure it out. And then what motivates me. And over the years, over and over and over, growth is what motivates me. The reason I'm bringing that up is because, you look at all these people up here that, obviously have, built things and are doing different things, but it doesn't have to be the same path for everybody. And for me, the growth was business until I hit a wall, and I was like, okay, now I need mindset, spirituality, me time. And that's what motivates me right now, is knowing that I have built a business that can, run effectively, that I know that I can do because I've, done it over the years now, but also switching gears to, okay, now how can I grow personally? And a huge piece of that is mindset. So I love books on mindset. I just got done reading, I don't know if I can say this, but You Are a Badass from Jen Sincero. Okay. Sorry, I just did. It's an awesome book, and it just all the feels. I can't wait to get in bed at night to read it. I can't wait to wake up in the morning to read it. It's part of my ritual of what I do. So those kind of energy boosting, high-minded mindset things, that's what gets me through the tough days and what makes the good days even better. And so that's it. Cool. Yeah.
That's great. Anna, for you, books or motivation, inspiration?
Yeah, totally. My reading has sort of evolved over time, because before it was all about production and how do we grow the business and 4 disciplines of execution and why do small businesses fail and all that stuff, and it's increasingly becoming more about how can I become a better leader. I'll humbly admit that it's not always been my strength. A lot of people get into this business, they start hiring, and they feel like that all of a sudden they're just a leader, and that doesn't always translate. Working with clients is one thing, working with staff is another. So my motivation was when I first got into the business, of course everybody wants to make money, right? We want to do really well. And then I remember when the very first production person on my team made over $100,000, and I was like, okay, I've helped create this opportunity for this person to have a life that they maybe wouldn't have had otherwise. And then that became sort of my challenge of saying all right, how do I help everybody on my team live their best life, and understanding what their goals are and understanding what their passions are, because it can't be about what Anna Kay wants. It's got to be what they want. And I have to make sure that my goals and my mindset around achieving that encompasses what they want, or I'm going to have those people fall off the bus. But so the 3 books that I kind of wrote down, one of them that kind of got me off of being an employee at my old consulting firm to become a business owner was Rich Dad Poor Dad, which hopefully many of you have read. Big Robert Kiyosaki fan. And that's really just about being an investor in your life and not being an employee necessarily, just understanding you can work for someone or you can build your own empire. And that spoke to me. And then the second one was more on management, on how you can get people on your team to become sort of their own inner genius by asking the right questions. It's called 1 Minute Manager. Lee gave me that book. It's a really easy read. I would suggest giving it to anybody that ever joins your team on top of reading it yourself. It's a really simple, basic principles on how to let people allow themselves to create leverage for your business, because they're really good at doing their job. And then the other one that I'm currently reading right now is called Multipliers. And I think this is just a good people book in general. You've probably been around people in your life that are energy vampires, or they sucked at life out of you. Before I even read this book, I had an ex-boyfriend who used to call people, they were either adders, subtractors, or multipliers. And the book is sort of like that, but it's really about how you can be this leader, or this manager, if you will, that constantly just sort of stifles people's ability to think. And I've been guilty of that in the past, where I feel I know best about my business, and I have to tell them exactly what to do, and you have to do this flyer this way, or this is what I envision for this. And I'm really working very cognizantly on allowing people to think about what they could bring to the table, and let them discover what their own inner genius is, so they can be the best at their job in their way, which is allowing me to create better leverage. But the passion that I have for my business has completely evolved, because it used to be about me, and it's just not anymore. I've got 2 of my 6 people sitting here today, and I'm grateful that they took the time. But really, I look at what's important to them in their lives, and really feel motivated to kind of help them achieve that at a higher level. And I think that we will, achieve success through that together. But I also have this really cute 19-month-old that is my big why. He's only been around for a couple of years, and my mindset on business is I don't want to work all the time every day. I don't want to be this haggard real estate agent who never sees her child. I value quality of life, and I want that to be a main principle in our business, which is why I'm reading these books on leadership, because I find that if you can inspire your people to be good people, everybody's going to have that really great life.
That's great. Very good. Jerry, motivation or books or?
Exactly what Anna said, and I'll add to it. That was so, mean, I just feel like I've known you for over 10 years, but I've never
Get
gotten to know
coffee.
you. We have to, because I'm like, yeah, it's what she said. On top of that, what really motivates me, and I think what's kept me in this business, because there have been many times where I'm like, what the hell am I doing? And then I look around and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I can still make a lot of money. It don't work all the time, but it is, to get to the point, is people. Other people motivate me. People from everybody in Sotheby's International Realty, from our local office all over the world. And I say that to say that kind of where you were going is, I'm a great real estate agent. I have a lot of room to improve. I've been successful, and I'm excited to do that. And part of what I've discovered, I can't even remember how this all manifested, but I started this podcast. I started meeting these agents. I bond with agents. I am so inspired by successful people. I probably talk to Bonneau on the phone more than anybody when we're doing a deal. And I'm like, Bonneau, you inspire me, because he's got that positive, outgoing, let's do this attitude. And that's our business. So going to that, you know, anywhere from in our office, I'm mentoring a lot of agents in the office. That inspires me so much to be able to see the difference between where you are when you're getting started and where you are when you're up here. And the only difference is we all have problems. It's just in the way that we look at them. And the way we look at them is when I'm in a room with people all over the country that are doing, you know, literally a couple hundred a year, is like, they think that's normal. And when they talk about problems, they don't have them. All we talk about is opportunities. So, but that wasn't even my point. My point to say is that in all these agents that I've met, I'm always asking them, like, hey, what's your book? The book that more people have recommended to me, and I have read it twice, and everybody that knows me has heard about it 10 times, is Never Split the Difference. That is, in this business, I think we all know that it can be, anybody who's been in this business and done a decent number of deals knows that as much as we're happy, loving people and generous people, if you're in this business and you're going to make it, you have to be. It can be incredibly challenging. You know, things become your fault that are absolutely out of your control. People get angry about things that have nothing to do with you, and they come at you and they attack you. And me, I just want to tell them they're wrong and explain to them why they're right, why I'm right and they're not, and whatever. And that doesn't go over well. So this book literally explains to you, it totally shifts that for you and for me. And when that many agents that are producing $102 million a year, not, you know, all over the country, are telling me to read that book, I've read it, and I'm going to read it maybe 3 or 4 or as many times as I can, because it is inspiring. And when you feel frustrated by this business and feel like people are beating you up and there's things that you can't control, and what are you going to do, and the stress and the whatever, for me, the ability to communicate the way this book, it kind of just spins it for you. It's great.
Yeah, it's a great book. Chris Voss is the author, VOSS. And he is a former, very high-level FBI negotiator. He actually negotiated some fairly well-known things that you guys are kind of young, but you might have heard of them. But anyway, they're really good. So let's turn that back into, and I did throw at these guys right as they got here, as we broke today to come in here. But let's talk a little bit about what maybe your exit looks like. Meaning that what does your retirement look like, or what is your, hey, I just own this thing. It doesn't have to be an exit as in like you're out, but like what's the end game? But no, we'll start with you.
That's a great question, and I haven't really thought about that, but I guess I've been preparing for that ever since I got into real estate. You know, with my commissions that I make, I for the last 7 to 8 years, I've taken half of what I make every year, and I go and I invest in my clients, and it's a real interesting thing to do. But I've probably invested in 15 to 20 different companies in and around Atlanta that my clients have, and I'm, you know, in the car with somebody for a full day, and I'm showing them homes, $3 and $4 million. You know, in my mindset, God, what's your secret to your success? And I plug them with questions all day long as I'm showing them houses, and people like to talk about themselves. And you know, it ends up being a wonderful day. And they say, look, I got this company, and I do this, that, and the other. You know, we're raising money, and I'm not a big fan of the stock market, and so I've invested in so many different companies in and around Atlanta because we're all in real estate, right? So I didn't see the thought behind, and I do have, you know, a lot of other real estate, but just keeping everything in real estate. So it's a way that I've diversified myself. So when I do exit and not sell property anymore, if I lose my voice or whatever else, I'm done. But I'll have, hopefully some good investments down the line. Another side of that is it's one reason why I started a company, right? I don't want to sell forever. And like y'all, I've positioned my week where I take the weekends off, and I'm always going somewhere, on the weekends, and the business is still churning along. And the thought process behind that is my company, Ansley Atlanta Real Estate, is really one big team that operates on its own now, and so I've got an exit from that standpoint. When I don't want to sell anymore, I'll be able to continue to have an office somewhere and go from there. So that's great.
Cool. Amanda, for you?
It's still a moving target. I'm not quite ready to throw in the towel yet.
All figured out yet?
No. I have different visions of what I would see it morphing into. I've always said that I wanted to sell real estate overseas. I love traveling. Me and my husband do not have children, nor do we plan to. So it's kind of trying to figure out life, without kids, right? So for me, right now, it's just, how can I create the best life possible and still have fun selling real estate? When I first started, when I guess I branded myself, I didn't brand it with my name, which, I know there's absolutely nothing wrong with, because that's your name and that's how you're known around Atlanta specifically. But for whatever reason, I just thought to myself, well, for some reason, Amanda Farn's not there one day to run it. I wanted it to be a brand that could easily be sellable, or it could be taken over by others. So my brand is the Home Boutique, of course affiliated with Keller Williams. But so I've always envisioned that as something that I could sell a book of business, or get people enough under me that they can kind of take it off and go with it. But I don't intend to be showing houses 20 years from now. I know that. Not sure quite what I will be doing, but it'll be something great.
That's great. Well, to be fair, you already have a house in the mountains. Like, that would be some people's exit. Like, I have a home in the mountains.
Yeah,
so I'm good.
and I don't want to be there so that's like just the now kind of getaway. But
Yeah.
and we have multiple rental properties. And something that you guys have to realize is you're not salespeople. You're experts in real estate. And whether you haven't bought your first house yet, or you have bought your first house yet, you've got to become a student of this market and realize the opportunity when it hits you. And we're coming up on some cycles and shifts where there's going to be a lot of opportunities. Yeah. So don't let anything discourage you not to be ho-hum, because I don't think anything bad's going to happen. But there's opportunities in every market. Take advantage of those. Get the rental property. Scrounge up the down payment for it, because it'll pay down the road. Not to mention you'll gain that much more knowledge, and you'll be that much more confident when you're working with your clients. This is serious. This is not just a fun, I'm going to go sell a real estate thing. If you think of it like a business and investment opportunity, then you will create wealth for yourself.
Yeah, that's super smart. I was at a National Association YPN event where there was a really young lady. I think she's maybe 28 or 29. And we were sitting around talking. We got to talk about investments in a big group. And she owns 300 rental properties. She's not even 30 yet. And it's just the coolest thing ever. And you would never know. Like, it just came up because we started talking about it. But it's amazing. And she's in real estate. She's still in sales. And you literally wouldn't know it unless you asked her if she owns rental properties. So the opportunity is unbelievable out there.
There's always opportunity.
And it's always...
Look at the opportunity that he was talking about earlier. It
Yeah.
makes sense on paper, but there's opportunity in every market. So look for it, take it, write the check. It's scary, but like you said, if it's not scary, you're not doing things right.
Yeah.
If your life is just going on and you're not being shook a little bit, then you're probably just living a life by default.
Right. Amazing things will not happen.
Yeah.
It will not happen if you wait for them to come to you. Anna.
So definitely kind of in line with what you're saying, there is opportunity in every market. I will speak to the agents that are in the market less than 2 years. I think many of you probably got in thinking like, it's a great time to get in real estate. It's awesome, right? Market's been awesome for a number of years. The opportunity in front of you guys, not Chicken Little here, like not 2008 to 2011 Chicken Little here, but the market is shifting, and you are going to make your business happen if you dig in and do the basics in the next 2 to 3 years. Because there's going to be a lot of people that, just the fact that you're sitting in this room tells me that you have a deep desire to be the best person at what it is that you do. And there's a lot of agents, and I think you all probably can name some, that just, they don't take it seriously, and they just kind of wait, very default, sit back and wait for things to happen. I think that you guys have an opportunity in front of you right now to like dig in and set the framework for your future success. 3 out of 4 of us up here got into the market when the market was crashing. And I think that speaks volumes on just like, we didn't know any difference, so you created the work ethic. And so for me to look at my exit strategy, I have to get really real about, it's not a gimmick that's gonna like make me rich quick. It's not like this brand new technology or like one person that I'm gonna add to my team. It literally is mastering the basics in the business, which is talking to people and lead generating and creating leverage when you're hitting resistance. And so that's my growth plan. I don't know what number of people that looks like on my team. I mentioned earlier that like we have a goal to like the 100 million mark should be just something that like is just kind of what we do. I am Brent with the Anna K Intown team, so I'll have to find a doppelganger or something to kind of like shoo myself out of the business. But for me personally, like I want to have another baby. I don't want to be like, I want to be out of production in the next 5 years. And I think that's really easy because I'm a slow growth kind of person, but now that I've kind of figured out how I'm wired, I feel like I want to be hiring smart people and not necessarily real estate people, because I feel like smart people can learn real estate. And just surround myself by smart people that share a common bond and a common goal to have a great life, so I can sort of step away and be more of like a leader and a CEO. And then when I get to that point, I have a passion for helping people get in the business. I probably go to coffee with more people that are like, want to get into the business. They just want to know, how did this happen? Like, what does that look like? And it's been 10 years, but I can tell you right now, I remember what my first deal was like. I mean, $68,000 foreclosure with like paperwork. Like, I remember what that felt like. And to me, if I can help people skip the mistakes or make a little bit fewer of them and be get to Bonneau status faster than slow growth Anna K, like I'm passionate about that. So my long-term goal is teaching, but then kind of back to what Amanda said, like invest in what you know. I mean, I'm diversified, I've got some stock market stuff, but I'm telling you, like my portfolio of real estate, you got to find those opportunities. And it doesn't have to be the best deal. It just needs to be the opportunity, the right opportunity cost for your money, such that you can learn about investing and then have residual income that pays for your life. I mean, what if you could cover every one of your expenses and make $1 extra? How awesome would that be?
That's great. I like that. Jerry, your exit. Yeah, your exit.
So exit strategy, it'd be really hard to get out of this business. I just say that to say that I think this business is really fun, and when I thought about getting out of it, I thought about all of the friendships I would lose, what a better person it's made me because of the challenges it presents us in life that we don't get in so many other opportunities in life. But I mean, to really answer the question, which that's kind of relevant to it, I think that for me it is, right now I can't imagine really stepping away from this business, but I really enjoy helping other agents grow their business and growing my team to help the agents that are working with me really be the best they could possibly be at what they do, and even better than me, and helping other agents do that through this podcast I've featured. If any of you want to listen to it, just put itunes.jerrymetcalf.com on your phone. It is literally like, sometimes I'm not sure I should publish these because all of my competition gets to listen, and it is some seriously awesome stuff. I mean, like this week is Seth O'Byrne, who's #1 team with Pacific Sotheby's International Realty, doing over $100 million a year, and probably the best marketing I have ever seen, not just from a real estate agent, but from any company. But anyway, but really it's just, I think it's more just transitioning from continuing to sell because I love it, I love what it does for me, and then growing my team to be strong and helping and mentoring and growing other agents through things I can do through this podcast.
Cool, that's great. We talked a little bit prior to, I don't know, and maybe if you guys want to if you want to speak to this, great. Everybody kind of alluded to it a little bit. We talked a little bit in advance about the difference between management and leadership, which I think isn't always recognized. I mean, sometimes you're managing the day-to-day, or you're managing people, or whatever those things are. versus leadership. I don't know that I have a question per se around it. I think our discussion was really fun. Do any of you guys want to kind of field that, either going from an agent to having some management or having to manage people, and or transitioning into a leader? Is there any thoughts or?
Yes, working on it, right? Every day, working on it every day. Kind of going back to the long leash and the high walls. I think that people want to know what they're supposed to be responsible for. But I find that, especially, I just feel like the personality of a realtor is to sort of want to micromanage, because it's our clients and our business and our details. But I found that when you do hire those smart people, is giving them the confidence to build the trust that they know how to answer the question. So, a lot of times I'll have somebody on my staff, or maybe a problem with a real estate transaction with one of our salespeople, and they'll come to me and they'll be like, "Oh my God, this is happening, da 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 da. I don't know what else to do." And it's really easy for me to want to answer the question and know the answer or help them, or they're looking to me to have the answer. And it can be as simple as turning back and asking them, I understand you've been faced with a problem, but if you did know the answer, what would it look like? So you're asking them to be thinking about it, or coming to me with a solution instead of coming to me with a problem. And just kind of letting people wear the ownership hat of their job and letting them feel like they're their own genius in a way. I mean, I hired you to do something better than I can do.
Right.
So what would that look like if you did it?
Yeah.
And it really just kind of comes down to letting go and letting that trust versus saying, "Oh my God, so-and-so is going to screw up this deal." Well, I mean, I just shared this story the other day. I had a listing go live, and it had a really large walk-in panty. Right? And I didn't notice it for 2 days until somebody was like, "Full price offer based on no."
Yeah.
People make mistakes, and you got to let them make the mistakes, but you got to require them to learn from their mistakes. And I think that's the big thing for me, is just allowing that to happen, and hopefully it's not mission critical.
Yeah, that's great, and it ties in obviously with the exit part. I mean, some people's exit is, or their growth strategy is that they want to become a manager or a leader or grow into some of those things. But no, I'd love to you talk a little bit about that, because obviously you've got 100+ people now.
Sure. Yeah, so I'll talk about my team first, and then go into kind of the other side of the management. When I was coming up and going, to sell 120 houses or 100 houses a year, I can't be at every one of those houses. I might not see some of those houses, right? But I'm still the leader, and my name's still on the sign. So you've got to set the correct expectation up front, with your client, right? And be able to go in there with your team and say, "Look, I'm your quarterback, I'm your guy, I'm the guy you called, I'm going to be doing your negotiations, and I'll be pulling the strings with, this person and this person and this person on the team." And by setting those expectations on the front end, it's not going to foul up during the time of that listing period. And I think that's really, really huge. And you've got to give your buyer's agents, if you have those, I don't have those, or selling, you got to give them the opportunity to do their work and not micromanage them. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to, achieve more volume year after year if you don't let go of some of those things. As it relates to our company, I think we've got a clear set of roles, and I think that's also important on the team side too, who's doing what and how from a program standpoint. I came up with some different positions in our company, and we've got a CMO, a Chief Motivating Officer, okay? This guy is our managing broker. He's also a certified life coach, and he is there to motivate, to help, direct the way your business is going and flowing and growing, and also to handle the broker questions, and that's that Chris Correll. He's phenomenal. And then we hired a big hire that was our Chief People Officer. And I said, look, the biggest thing that we've got going on in our company is our culture. And if that gets ripped up, or if that doesn't stay incredible, then we've got a big problem. So you're in charge of our culture, and our culture is our branding, our marketing, how the energy levels are in the office, and everything in between. So I know somebody said they were psychiatrists too. That's totally true, and she has to keep everybody right in line. And we when we have something going wrong in the office, we try to fix it quickly, and we have.
And you know whose responsibility it is.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So.
Well, something interesting about that too, that I know Chris pretty well, and the thing that speaks to me is that basically you hired a manager so you could be a leader.
Right, that's exactly
and I think it's great.
That's a
And
great point.
a way I say it a lot to people, which I think maybe resonates more than terms like that, is just it positions you to potentially be the good cop. So if you can have good cop, bad cop, Chris can be the guy that's like, hey, you didn't make your calls, you didn't hit your numbers, and you can be the guy that blows in and is like, hey, everything's great, good to see you,
right.
Go down the hall. So maybe that's a way to look at it sometimes too, just the idea that maybe if you are a little more of a micromanager or whatnot, it's not always growing out of that. It might just be a function of like, hey, I need somebody else to be the bad cop. So I don't know if this is something we can answer quickly or not, but I'd love to potentially, we'll start with Jerry, and I'd like everybody to answer if you can. It's kind of a tough question. Like, what does your average day look like? I know we're in real estate and there's no average day, but just like, what do you do? What do you do on a consistent basis, I guess?
You have to ask me that first.
Yeah, sorry.
No time to think about that. So I get up, I answer some emails. Sometimes I work out every day, once or twice a day. I know that's scary, but it's like it's a mindset thing too. It's just a mindset thing of it keeps me like mentally, and it helps me turn off. It helps me anyway. But I get up, answer some emails, usually I go work out or spend time with my kids. I have we have like this for you guys who have kids. I think as a mom. Sorry to be a little sexist for a minute, but this isn't videoed, so I can only get in so much trouble. But anyway, but I think I have oh, it is? Where's the video camera? Go for it. Oh, no. But I will say, I think as a woman, I grew up and found out that when you have kids, I don't know if it's wired in us or what it is, but there is this obligation to your babies. Like you are constantly torn between work and children. I don't know that all men experience that. And that can be a little sexist, but I have found it to be true. So part of to work with that, because on the other end, I figured out quickly that work I need to do for a lot of reasons, and some of it's for me, because when I go to work, I get to look forward to coming to see my kids. And not to be insensitive, but being at home all day with your kids, as much as we love them, we'll do anything for them, will be a challenge. I say that to say, get up, answer some emails, go work out, come home. Somebody else gets the kids ready. I do that. I used to try to do it. I would fight. I would be stressed. I would be worried about clients. I'd be worried about getting ready. Now I work out. It's cool. I hug them and kiss them. I get to take them to school. They're going to be ready. There's not going to be any problems. Spend really awesome quality time with my kids, taking them to school, go to school. That drop them off. I'm on the phone with clients. Some days I'm on the phone more or less, but the more I'm on the phone and I've got other people on my team worrying about amendments getting signed, worrying about inspections, worrying about this and that, the more productive I am. After that, I have client meetings, client calls. I mean, today I have this panel. It's really the focus of my day is phone calls and connecting with my clients or lead generating. And then the end of the day, I often will go, y'all probably think I'm OCD, but I go work out again because I get home and I'm awake for my kids. My kids told me one day, Mom, you work and sleep. And I was like, that is not who I am. So I work, I spend time in that, going to see them, which also as a mom, you can leverage that for your business. But when I work out before I go home, I am like, first of all, it gives me a minute to detach from work. And when I get home, I'm pumped because I just worked out and I'm hanging out with my kids and they're getting a lot more of me.
Yeah, I love that. Kind of bookending the day with that. It definitely makes sense.
What time do you get home?
Me, 6:30.
What time do you wake up?
5:30.
That'd be a good question
I'm
across
just
the
wanting
board.
to work out in my mind from time to time. I used to run marathons. I don't think I've worked out in months.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't do it. I can't
Yeah,
like
it's-
stay mentally okay. I have to.
Probably why RJ thinks I'm so bitchy. I'm totally picking.
You're past 3 months, you're good.
So, very similar. I mean, it's so funny, like, my coach is like, time block, time block, time block. And I was like, what career are you in? Like, what is it that you think that we do? But, like, theoretically, I try to swallow the frog in the morning when I'm in lead generation mode, because I know that's the hardest thing to do, because in the afternoon, things can get crazy. And if you wait to try to do your hard stuff after lunch, it's like offer comes in, amendment, low appraisal, like all the things that are going south that you need to like take care of with your clients. But I don't get up at 5:30. I'm a sleep deprived mother. I love to sleep as late as I can until my baby boy wakes up at 6:30. I don't have somebody to get him dressed every day. I want her number.
And it's not expensive to stay back.
So, like, although I do value that time with him, because I feel like I only get to see him like 3 hours a day, and like that's not enough for me. But I spend a lot of time with my son in the morning, getting him ready. Like, we have fun with the blow dryer and like getting dressed and all that stuff. And either Dad will take him or I will take him to school. We have fun with that. Try to get to the office by 9. I know that I should be diving into lead generation, but what really happens is the whirlwind takes over very easily. And I've got my listing manager who's got a lot of questions, so I can help get those out of his way so he can move forward and making sure our clients are taken care of. But basic things. We have a high level of focus on customer service, so making sure we're getting feedback on our listings, negotiating amendments, repairs, all that good stuff that needs to happen. Following up with existing opportunities. Like, I think lead follow-up is a really tough thing for us agents. Like, we're all about the now business. We know what our pipeline is for the next 30 days, but do you know who's ready to buy and sell in 6 months? And so we are really trying to get methodical about that lead follow-up piece, as well as cultivating those new leads. Weekly, I sit down with my director of operations, and we kind of go over our what's called a 411 is a tool that we use. And it really is just sort of a measurable pipeline to show where we are on major projects, staff, training, what problems have arisen, where we are in these certain tasks and stuff like that, and getting a report on how the team is doing. And then what else do I do? Lead generate, measure and track results. So we have goals. We're a big fan of like goal setting. We do annual goals. We know very clearly what those are. We simplify them as much as possible. We're tracking those every week, and then every month we're like reevaluating, are we on track to hit that for our annual goal, and if not, what's our contingency plan to get there? Like, how many units do we actually need to have under contract this week in order to stay on goal or get caught up to our goals? So we're reevaluating that at least weekly, even though I'm kind of like monitoring that daily.
Yeah, that's great.
And then tracking that. Like, you got to track how many calls you made, how many appointments you took, stuff like that.
Yeah. I love looking at it weekly. I
Yeah.
do the same personally, just because you have to. Otherwise, it's like 3 months, and you're like, oh, crap, it didn't happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. Amanda, your average day?
Yeah, I don't really have an average day. I have morning rituals, evening rituals, and then I have my perfect week that I kind of focus on. So morning rituals, I'm up usually by 7. I'm not an early riser. In fact, my husband wakes me up, and I don't want to talk to anybody for like 30 minutes. But once I do kind of open my eyes and get up and moving, I like to read or write in the morning. It just helps me clear my mind. It helps me get centered, focused, right mindset, all that kind of stuff. I don't like jumping out and feeling like I'm having to deal with stuff. In the evening, I drink tea. Again, I read before I go to bed to kind of just shut down. So the in-between for me is more based on what day of the week it is. Because I'm so structured with my calendar on a weekly basis, my appointment slots are Mondays and Tuesdays at 2 and 4 p.m. So that's when I have opportunities for appointments to pop in. Wednesdays are usually my full lead generation day. Instead of breaking it up in little pieces throughout the week, I just find that if I can just dive into it and pour all of my energy into a good 5 hours, it feels better and just kind of rejuvenates me. And then on Thursdays are when I do closings. So where a lot of people just typically put closings for Fridays, we do Thursdays so that I can get up the mountain on Friday. And two, it's less crowded in the closing attorney's office. There's less chance for you to get bumped, and it's just a more peaceful process for my clients. Not to mention, then they can either start moving on Friday, or if we have to do like a one-day lease back, it just makes it less stressful for everybody. So that's really kind of my Monday through Thursday. When I'm not in appointments, Mondays and Tuesdays at 2 and 4, I'm in the office. We're working on, well, I can go into all kinds of stuff, rabbit hole, but in the office, I am doing some lead generation follow-up, but it's more of just, touching, the clients that I do have, making sure our operations with me and my executive assistant are going okay. And then that's pretty much it.
Cool.
Yep.
That's great. I love the Thursday closing thing. I might steal that.
It's just, I started doing it just again so I could get up the mountain, and I was like, this is genius, because nobody's here,
Right.
You don't have all that stress and the bumps and that,
That's great. But no,
I'll be quick as it relates to this. My day starts the night before. I religiously have these books. I've got 17 of them, 18 of them in my office. And in here, I hit my goals, what I want to do the day before, or excuse me, the next day. And that's what I do. I don't get up super early. I don't work out that much, obviously. I used to. And I like to communicate with my team members in the morning. Hey, here's what we're doing today, guys. Here's what we're doing. And then we just got to go. I've got a great person in the office that schedules everything for me, and it just pops in on my phone of what I'm doing today, and I go and do it.
that's great. Do you go physically into the office at the same time?
Yeah, I always try to go in there and talk to the agents in there, and just try to have some time with them, and then I just see what's on the calendar.
That's
I'm
great.
home by 6. I coach my kids in sports, and it's a great time.
That's great. Cool. So I think everybody basically is intentional. I think that's if you want a big takeaway from that, it's just being intentional. It doesn't even necessarily matter. It doesn't matter what the things are, but just being intentional at that time. So I had a couple more things. I don't want to go too crazy on any of these. Actually, I'd love to get a short answer from each of you on what are your benchmarks? Like, what are you measuring? Is it sales volume? Is it number of agents? Is it money in my pocket? We'll start with Jerry again and come back down this way. But just at a high level, like, what's your metric?
Benchmarks, I think for me, is quality of life. I mean, this is kind of vague, but it's really quality of life. Like, I sit down and do I have a good quality of life? Am I going good places? Am I around good people? I like Robert and I especially sit down and look at volume and what kind of transactions are we doing and how can we do better? Because I think that's reflective of is what we're doing working.
Yeah.
So that's a benchmark. But the biggest is really quality of life and people so that we can reach those other benchmarks.
Good. That's great. Anna, for you?
Quality of life for me personally, obviously I want that for my team too, but from a business perspective, obviously profit. I mean, it's great if you're making a lot of money, but are you keeping a lot of money? So we focus heavily on understanding the profit of the organization. I think the way that we set goals is really comes down to listings sold, because we can probably make the agreement that listings bring buyers. So we focus more on listing opportunities than we do on the finding buyer opportunities, because those just naturally show up. And I would say that's kind of like our main drivers of like how we set up our business.
Cool. Okay, right, Amanda, for you?
For years, my benchmark was GCI, gross commission income, and it was okay, I'm going to double it, I'm going to do this. And then my life coach / business coach told me, well, let's switch that mindset and look at units instead. Because if you were to do X amount of units at a higher price point, then what does that dollar amount look like? And so that's what I've been focusing on for the last few years from a business perspective. I think I've talked enough about personal. So we focus on units, and that's broken down very strategically the year before. We usually do our planning in November, so we know those numbers 60 days before we even go into the new year of how many units closed, what that looks like from a listing standpoint, from a buyer standpoint, and then I would even break it down further into how many listing appointments does that mean, and it just trickles down from there. But yeah, units in a nutshell.
Okay, great. But no, your metrics?
Yeah, I've never been motivated by money. I've always been able to do whatever I want to do. I don't even know how much money I make per year. I just know that I can do whatever I want to do. The matrix that I really use is how many lives I can touch every year, and that's through donations and helping others achieve what they need to do for their families. When we started the company, we wanted it to not charge a transaction for every unit, every sale, like some other companies. Instead, we donate on every sale. We donate to CHOA, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. So every sale we do, we donate, and we've got close to 100% participation on our agents. So they match the company's donation of $100 every time they sell, and then we try to get our clients to be part of that movement. So, you know, if we I don't know how many closings we have a year at A. Let's say we have 500 closings a year. That's possible of $300, you know, for every closing going to the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. Now that really touches a lot of lives, and it's a different mindset. You know, we're not looking at the bottom line, you know, for pennies and how to, you know, charge agents for this, that, or the other. You know, it's just about how many lives can we touch.
Cool, that's great.
All right, so I'm just going to give any or each of you guys an opportunity. If you have one, if there's something you didn't get to say that you want to say, and then we'll open up for some questions. Do any of you panelists have anything specific that, like, hey, I wish we would have talked about this, or I was...
Everybody told about their favorite book that they've read, and I haven't read a book since like I was 10 years old, so that's kind of an interesting fact. The last book I read was Herschel Walker's biography, and it was awesome. But I'm dyslexic, so I don't like to read. It makes my head hurt, and I don't get very far when I start. So, you know, from a standpoint of just modeling myself, it's not about books. It just kind of I wing it.
Yeah, that's great.
From that standpoint.
That's great, but it kind of goes back to kind of the know yourself, right? It's like, all right, I'm not going to make myself read a book because some guru said I should read this book. That's great. So let's take some questions. I have either a volunteer or somebody who wants to maybe work the mic. Taylor, you want to work the mic? After he's done, you can run it.
Hi. Testing.
Should be on.
If there's a quick comment that you all could make on this question, it'd be interesting to hear. It's a market question. Over the next 3 years, what do you see as the most significant shift in pattern behavior among sellers and buyers? How will sellers or buyers and buyers change between now and the next 3 years, do you think? Whether it's a disruptor in the industry or whether it's a life change in the segment of the market, where do you see the Atlanta market changing among sellers and buyers?
I'll speak to sellers because that's kind of who I work with mostly, but I think anybody that's been through a really great market, cycled by a downturn, I think towards the end of that like really awesome market, we've always seen these like little discount boutique brokerages pop up. And I think that we're starting to see that again. Like the Virgin Realties where they like sell any price house for $5,000. And frankly, I've lost a number of listings to opportunities like that. And that's just sort of like fueling my, like, well, how do I get my value proposition up to understand, like, on $1 million house, if you can get a multiple offer contract in 7 days, like, why would they hire me for $30,000, right? So that's something that I'm mentally working through, but I think these little boutique brokers that do these discount listings they've always been noise in the market, but they tend to pop up when the market's been really strong and easy. So I think that we're seeing that. I think we're going to experience that for 2 to 3 years, but I also think it will shift back to having the value of a real person who comes to your house and understands the market and has that relationship with you when the market gets a little tougher, which I do think it will slow down probably in about 2 to 3 years. So we're going to see this little pinch where we've got a lot of new agents in the market, and the piece of pie, the share for everybody gets smaller, and then people are losing stuff to these discount brokers. But I think then that's where you earn your value is during the next 2 to 3 years.
That's a great question and a great answer, especially for this group, because those of us who have been, actually we've all been in about the same amount of time, you see it happen. Every year there's this new thing, and it's going to eliminate real estate agents, and everybody, you know, oh my goodness, and it happens every single year. So
the same thing was said about the internet, right?
Right. Although, maybe we started on that. Does anybody else want to speak to that? I mean, it'll always be cyclical, and I think that's part of us talking about earlier about the path, the fact that we don't have it all figured out. You're always moving towards something, and you will never have it figured all out. The minute you decide that when this happens, then it doesn't work that way. No more questions.
Yep, follow-up question for that. that. You said 2 to 3 years, you see it slowing down. What drivers are you seeing that's...
No crystal ball here, of course. I mean, because I'd be very wealthy if I had that. But first of all, I mean, they just announced interest rates are coming up the curve, which we've always known is going to happen.
They've been saying that for a while.
No, they actually just announced it.
Okay, yeah.
So it's happening.
Yeah.
It's not like this crazy thing, but if you look at historical cycles, you see these markets happen every 5 to 7 years. You see these cycles, right? We climbed out of this really large, deep depression. Don't think we're headed back there, but what I'm sensing and what I'm experiencing is just the normalization of the market, right? So we're going from this really gross seller's market to a more stabilized, normal market, which will eventually flood to a buyer's market the way the normal cycle does. But that's a combination of two things. One, I think there's all this pent-up buyer activity of people that came out of these short sales and foreclosures, and they're now like, they have their credit repaired, they've been buying these opportunities, and if you're a seller, what a great time to be a seller. So the buyer was sort of backlogged, buyer opportunities were backlogged, and now they're kind of out there. Secondly, the interest rates are going to slowly rise. When I bought my first house, it was 5.75%, which felt like a steal. For people in the market today, because we've had it great for so long, that's going to feel like a ridiculous interest rate, which is completely below average. So I think it's like 6.5% is average. So the cost of money is going to be a lot more expensive, and we've seen this steep rise of prices, right? So you've got these more expensive houses, but the cost of money being more expensive, there's a gap there because people aren't earning more income at that same rate that prices went up and interest rates are going up. So you're going to have this lull. So obviously we know there's more inventory on the market. What happens to pricing? Goes down, right? So it becomes a buyer's market again. I also think that with the proposed tax plan, I know it's not completely finalized, but I feel like if it does get approved, that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, this is just my opinion, but I feel like if the tax plan gets approved and you have to live in your house 5 out of the last 8 years to not pay capital gains, that's going to basically cut in half the market of opportunities for people to buy and sell because they're now incented to stay in their home longer, which is less transactions for us. So I definitely think the pie is going to get a lot smaller quickly. Does that make sense? So I don't know if
That's a great answer.
I don't know if that's going to get passed or not, but like if we have any influence to still help Capitol Hill change some of these tax laws, it is not good for Association of Realtors.
Yeah, and also for price points too. I mean, if you can only deduct interest from $500,000 opposed to $1 million, well, that's going to hurt the high end big time. What about if you can't deduct the property taxes?
Yeah, I mean
I know it's a huge deal, and that's going to send a slowdown over the next couple of years. It's just inevitable.
It's going to create pause for people, a lot.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I mean, what goes up must come down. It's life, it's cyclical. Yes, you want to be educated and you want to know what's coming down the road as much as you can without having the crystal ball. You also want to look back. So if you guys, any, statistics that you have access to through your brokerage or through, the ABR or whatever, look at that because what the history will tell the future in some sense. And there's opportunity in every market. So we don't want it to continue to go up because then a lot of times you have a bubble and things like that. So it's a good thing that there's a shift coming. It's needed to come for probably a little over a year now.
And then that's going to clean up some of these discount brokers and all these agents that aren't here listening, right, that are just have their license, and it's not a terrible thing.
One little note I'll say that as far as the agent count goes, I love that people have gotten into the market and there's so much opportunity. And again, the fact that you guys are sitting here, kudos to you because learn all you can. And the more you learn, the more successful you'll be. In the down market, it weeded out, right? So the cream rose to the top. All that was left was the best of the best. I mean, I think you guys can probably remember that, agents. So be nice in your transactions. Make sure that, you're going to be one of those agents that's going to make it through, a little bit of a shift or a little bit of a turn. And how you do that is being the most professional one in the deal. So make sure that you're not letting your emotions get it, take control of you, and that you're being the best that you can be as a professional, and you will make it. And the rest of them that are mean and nasty, they'll go away. They really will.
Great. Any more questions?
First, thank you all for participating in this. This has been really good. Markets are unpredictable. There seems to be a sense that y'all are all talking about the direction it's going. My question relates more to kind of the routines and disciplines. So when you all first got started in the business, what was something that you felt like you had to always do that now you look back and are like, I can't believe I wasted so much time doing that, but by not doing that, it freed up time for you to do other things that have allowed you to sell more real estate?
That's great. I like that. You want me to rephrase it? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you're saying in essence is what was the thing that you thought you needed to be doing, that you were doing, that maybe down the line you're like, maybe that wasn't the best.
Yeah.
I don't have a direct answer, but I think there's so many things we need to be doing that we're not doing. I mean, even now, any lack of success that I have that I desire is what I'm not doing, which is, it's just so basic, but for what it's worth. As far as, sometimes it's just making things complicated. I've done lots of crazy things, like I'm sure a lot of you may or may not remember my videos. That was totally worth it. I can't keep doing that forever, but it was awesome, and I loved it, and it was great for business. But I think the main thing is just, and whatever you do, never forget the basics and make sure you keep doing that. Because it's so easy, like you said earlier, Anna, to lose track of that and to just catch up with your deals and catch up with what's going on and not follow up and love those clients that have been your clients for years past to keep that business going. And I know a lot of people in here are newer, is don't forget, like the people who love you, don't let them forget that you're a real estate agent, because there's so many opportunities in those people that you know that you think won't give you the opportunity, that if you just keep yourself in front of them. And one last thing, like find your value. Like it's not going around asking people if they know who wants to buy or sell a house. That's not it, because everybody's saying that and everybody's asking that one license and it gets old. But what are you good at? What is your value? If you haven't sold or if you've sold a few houses, what were you really good at in that deal? And how can you communicate that, leverage that, learn your market? One of the best pieces of advice I get in all these podcasts and agents that I talk to and in my own experience is, and one of those people, Joshua Reeves, said it the other day, is like, we were all doing this little mastermind in our office, and it was like the one way you can stand out is know your market, know what your market is, and know that market better than anyone. When you can do that, people don't care about listing presentations. They don't care about dog and pony shows. They want someone who's really good and really offers value, and follow up. And after that, stay on the phone, and the rest will happen.
That's great. Anna, do you want to speak to that? Maybe you guys should answer that.
Yeah, I remember, because I came from a background in like brand strategy, and I remember getting into the business and like I needed to have like the perfect business card with the perfect website, and like every mailing piece needed to feel like Anna Kay. Like I was like analysis paralysis, like getting ready to get 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 ready, and I never actually did the things that you need to do, which was just pick up the phone. And I hid behind these things, that like looked like I was a really great realtor. You can go to my website today. It's a Barbara Corkin website. I don't think I've edited any of the text. In fact, I think some of the pages don't work. Like, not proud of that, but like that's not why people call me. I'm sure it's turned some people off if they found me, but like, just don't spend so much time like trying to put out the perfect piece, or like just get it, make it consistent. Pick up the phone, call people, email people, stay in touch with people. And if you're not doing that, it doesn't matter how good your business cards look. So that was like the big thing early in my business that I got focused on. And then the other thing I got sort of carried away with is just doing everything. Like whatever new thing was coming down the pipe, or like if I had somebody that was like, looking for a house and coming, Intown agent was like showing houses and coming. I was like, I gotta do it all. Like I would never turn down an opportunity. And that was probably great for like a minute until I realized like I'm never gonna grow because I'm spending like half of my day in my car. So just allowing yourself to just say no. Like just say no sometimes and you'll be way better off.
How often do you follow up, with your past clients? How often do you think, like once every 2 months, or do you have
That's a great question. So I have a big lump of coal for that question. I am really, I'm much better at calling people that I don't know. But I will say that we're really good about client events. We have 2 really big events a year, so they're going to hear from us at least twice a year. Like I can probably tell you that all 3 of these people probably pick up the phone and dial through their database, and that is a big initiative for us this year. My goal is to touch my influencers at least 4 times a year. But our sphere, everybody that would know, if I were to pick up the phone and call and be like, hey, it's Anna Kilinski, they'd be like, oh, hey, they know who I am. They're getting an invite to our spring appreciation event, which we do at Rathbun Steak, and then they're getting an invitation to our breakfast with Santa, even if they're Jewish. So, come on, get your picture with Santa. We have a really fun event for them, and it gives us the ability to reconnect with them in person. They're coming to us, which has been one of my strengths versus sitting down and methodically dialing through my database.
Yeah, that's smart. Do you guys have another question? Do you guys want to answer that super quick?
Yeah, so I call through my database once a quarter, and then this year we started something which I have absolutely loved, and it's been so much fun, is we created an A-list of our top past clients that have referred us business for the last 2 years, and we've been sending them something every month. And of course that goes along with the calls, every quarter. So the A-list, they got a welcome, very nicely done. I mean, I think we did it from Shutterfly or something, but it looked like an invitation to a party, right? And it's congratulations, you have made the Home Boutiques 2017 A-list. Look out for, goodies and, things, along the year. We've got 50 people on our A-list, so it's not, a ton of people. It's not a ton of money. But, over the year, we've sent them, one little thing, every month. For instance, this month we got small Fraser fir candles to send them because I love Fraser fir candles. And I was like, everyone needs to have one. One for you, one for you. So that's something really fun that we've been doing, and I can't wait to do it next year. And it's been interesting over the year because I get texts, I get, posts on Facebook oh my gosh, thank you so much for this pop socket. We did pop sockets. I mean, it costs $1 a pop socket.
And it's got your brand on it, right?
It's got my brand on it. And I mean, I had people literally messaging me on Facebook, can I get one of those? Can I get one of those? And of course, we're going to send some out to those other ones too. But it's just been fun. It's been a fun way to engage with our clients and get them excited about, us and remember us. Of course, we've gotten a ton of, extra referrals that we may or may not have gotten before. But it's just a way to say thank you too, for the people that, really are supporting us. For the November one, we didn't do a gift. We just did a very nice, Thanksgiving and holiday card, and I hand wrote in each one of them, thank you so much for your continued support. I mean, and that's what it's all about. So anyway, we've had a lot of fun with that this year.
That's great. But you want to speak to either the online marketing or something you did that you shouldn't have done?
I mean, I'm doing most everything that they're doing.
Okay.
So nothing new.
Okay, we'll do these 2 more questions, and then we'll wrap it up.
Several of you talked about hiring coaches. I'm curious, at what point did you start that, make the decision, okay, I need to do that, and what did that look like for you?
Not soon enough for me. That's fine.
I've never had a coach. I probably need one. I'm sure I do. But I've just never done that.
Did you have other kind of mentorship or?
No. I'm just, I went to boarding school in 7th grade, so if y'all got little 7th graders, so I was off on my own at an early age. I weighed 75 pounds, or that when I was in Connecticut. So anyway, I've just been able to just individually just try to just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. But a coach is phenomenal, and I really might need to get some numbers if y'all wouldn't mind sharing. That'd be great.
I got my first coach because I was bullied into it in kind of a way. I met with an accountability group for years and years. Renee Keeble, Brenda Greenwood, Courtney Newton, and John Zerker. I don't know if you guys know their names. If not, reach out to any one of them. They're phenomenal agents, and they're willing to help anybody. But we would meet every single Tuesday morning for years, and we would talk about our business, and we would help each other through different things. We were growing our businesses on different levels and things like that, and it really became kind of a coaching and mentor group with us. And they went to Keller Williams family reunion one year, and I didn't go, and I got a text, and they were like, we're all going to sign up for coaching. You better get online and sign up for it now. And I was like, what? I'm like, it's how much? And this and that. They're like, do it. So it was kind of a bullying thing. But we all realize that while we're, helping each other, grow to a certain point, we all were looking for different things, and we just needed some exterior help too. So we all joined coaching with our own separate coaches. I've switched coaches twice since I've been in coaching, and I've been in coaching for, I guess, 8 years probably. And so, yes, I firmly believe in it. It's just nice to have that person that's looking outside of your life and outside of your business and helping you work through this stuff. The way I look at it is, every, professional football team, basketball team, they all have coaches. Like, you can't have a team, you can't have a successful organization without a coach when you're looking at sports and different things like that, so why not in business?
Yeah, that's great. Anna, do you want to answer that too?
That's a name for you. You would thrive with a coach. I know you personally. I find that, and this is, I think people that have the desire to learn and the willingness to grow are going to thrive with a coach. I think someone who's like, oh, I need a coach, and they're going to let that coach let them hide in their dark corner is maybe not going to benefit from it as well. And I've had some coaches that don't keep me accountable, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. Talk to you next week. And they weren't the right coach for me. But think about it. Like, you guys, who works out in here? Okay.
Jerry does.
Yeah. Twice. So if you were to go to the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning and you were going to work out for an hour, do you feel like you'd have the same results that you would if you had a personal trainer? Is anybody that self-motivated that they would have get the same results? Same thing with the coach, right? So it's like, it is just kind of putting kind of a looking glass on just like focusing on what it is that your goals are. And this person should get you to grow into a higher level, not sort of talk to your, like what you're doing now. They're going to want to see you grow into the next level. So a coach or a mentorship or a focus group or something like that. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, show me your tribe and I'll show you your future.